everyone, on to week 10. We're on to the last little run of modules for legal research, and we're really focusing at this point at the issues around presentation and feedback and getting your project ready to go. So the last 3 weeks of the program are very practical and looking at the final steps you take in a project to get it ready to be sent off. And as with everything in this course, I'm trying to get people to think in terms different to just-in-time delivery, different to trying to get everything done just before a deadline is due, and setting out appropriate timelines. And that's certainly true in terms of presentation, and it's certainly true in terms of getting feedback. And just a reminder that next week's task is a feedback task, and you'll need a partner to work with to swap work and provide feedback. Or you can do, say, in a group of 3, and you can move it around, pass to the left, that sort of thing. But you are going to complete the workshop for next week, you're going to have to actually engage with another human being along the way. Shock horror. And I'll talk more about that project next week. This week it's about doing a spoken presentation around your project, obviously with 120, 150 students and an hour's class time. We're not going to get everyone to do a presentation in class. So instead what we get is everyone to do a video. And this is important for lots and lots of reasons. It's very important for your project itself. There's something about the delivery of doing a spoken delivery that is different. You can write as many abstracts and summaries and whatever around a project as you like, and there's something about that spoken delivery, changing communication mode, that you will start to see where there are gaps. You'll start to see where the logic works or doesn't work. So that's one thing. Is actually it supports your project immensely to be able to present it to someone else. And that can be just a conversational presentation, or it can be a formal one. And the video you'll be doing will be, somewhere in between those things. It'll be a formal presentation, but it's not expected to be the same sort of pressure as, say, an oral defense of a research project where you're going to be interrogated or grilled by someone on your content. The other thing, and this is purely paternalistic, is to start forcing you to get used to video technology. Some people are used to video technology, and it's fantastic. You'll have no problems this week. But most of us start out with an aversion to doing this sort of thing, and we certainly start with an aversion to seeing ourselves and hearing ourselves. And you have that whole hearing yourself recorded going, really? Do I sound like that? That's awful. And that's a process of working through that. And even myself, as a person with 20 years of teaching experience, when I came to doing video-based lectures, it was a big learning curve for me. The first few I did, I had to keep stopping recording and re-recording, and I got into those loops where you just I don't know what to say next, and you have to go and delete that bit, start again from that section and go again, because it is an uphill battle. It is an uphill thing to learn and to train yourself to get used to that delivery format, and particularly to get used to being self-critical and self-reflective and looking at what you've done and go, okay, overcoming that initial queasiness I have about seeing myself on video, what worked and what didn't. And I just said so you can say in these things as well. You're not going to have marks taken off for a few ums. But if you do get into those loops where you realise that your brain has just frozen, that's a good time to stop, go back and start recording again. All right, but you shouldn't have too much difficulty with this project. It's a nice short little video. Should be relatively easy for you to do. And it's just that start of the project, that start of getting used to being a video presenter. And the more you do it, the more you'll get used to it, and the less threatening it will be when you're in a professional situation and someone asks you for something like this. And there are lots of situations in which you need to be able to present in a spoken environment. There's the conventional seminar situation or conference room where you have to stand up when you're physically present. and present to people. And that's actually becoming something that's less dominant, that we're actually using video conferencing is becoming more and more important. And also being able to do pre-prepared videos. So things like executive summaries are increasingly now being prepared in a video format, and some of them are being done in a very swish kind of professional way, where you have green screens and professional people. And I've done a few of these myself, where you just end up just reshooting over and over again until you get your intonation actually perfect and you actually get across the idea of what you want to be able to say. But I think what's becoming more likely is people want short, snappy, more informal, and less worried about that final level of polish. So someone says, rather than, can you give me a one-page email about your proposal, they'll say, look, just shoot me a quick video, no more than 2 minutes, outline what you want, and I'll have a look at it later. And that's going to, I think, in the future, I think things are changing really quickly, that's going to become more dominant, and it's certainly going to be, as people become less and less inclined to read emails, certainly more persuasive. So even if people don't ask for it and don't specifically want it, it's possibly going to be something that we'll say, oh look, send me a pitch for your project, what you want to do with it, what resources you need. You say, oh, I've got a quick video presentation, I'll put that together and send it to you. People go, oh good, I can watch that on my phone, or I can watch it and put it on 1.5 times speed to get through it more quickly, or whatever they end up doing with it. But it's going to become a more and more important skill. And this is connected to the idea of the elevator pitch, which is a Hollywood term for where you have Steven Spielberg locked in an elevator for 30 seconds, and you realise this is your great chance to pitch him the screenplay that you've written that you want presented, and you have 30 seconds before he manages to escape out of the elevator to say, this is my pitch. That's why it's called an elevator pitch. And increasingly that is becoming a very important skill, rather than to be able to say to people, look, I'll send you a 12-page document with annotations and tables and everything else. It's to be able to reduce that further and further. One of my first jobs was working in an area that involved ministerial advice. And in those days, ministers had plenty of time on their hands and would read a whole page of comments. But I believe that's less and less likely, and then it soon became half a page. And maybe these days they'll only read a tweet. But still, working in an area where you have access to people who are powerful, quite often you have to be able to say, I need resources for this project, or an extension to this project, or I need this or that, and I need to be able to encapsulate that very quickly, and I need to be able to present it in a persuasive way in a face-to-face context. So there's lots and lots of reasons that spoken presentation is going to be important, and the only way to get good at them and to get comfortable with them is to just do lots of them over and over again. And sometimes you can get too casual. I'm sure there'll be people who find my video lectures to be way too casual, and would prefer that they be read very, very precisely from slides or something like that. But my purpose in doing these weekly videos is certainly not to convey information, because that's what your readings are for. It's backed up by your study guides. This is more just to lead you into what you need to do each week. So my feeling is that a casual approach is probably going to be amenable to more people that way. So, but you do need to be able to moderate what you do. Certainly if I went to the academic board and was presenting a proposal for a new course, I wouldn't be this sort of laid back when I was doing it. I'd be much more formal in my presentation style. Alright, so what else have we got in the study guide this week? There's a short reading this week on presentation skills. There's lots of advice around the place online and in various other places on presentations and how to do presentations. I've included some stuff in the outline. I'm yet to find a really great one. I mean, a lot of these things say things that are very, very obvious, or they're focus on things that are, things that are contentious, that are not necessarily like, you know, what you should be wearing and whether you should be standing up or not standing up. And I see a lot of these guides and I sort of think, well, most of these are, it depends. In some circumstances, yes, I'd be doing that. In other circumstances, no, I wouldn't. So there's yet, it'd be great if someone actually did like the definitive, you know, really good guide to doing video presentations. But there's a lot of advice around to think about and to consider. And the short reading from this week is at least a relatively good one. When it comes to these sort of presentations, one thing to bear in mind is that structure is very, very important. Just same as when you're doing a written presentation where you need those signposts to lead someone through, and you need to be able to give them some sort of progress report as you go as to where we're up to. Now, I'm going to make 5 important points in this presentation. The first point is moving on to the second point. Now, the third point is this. Those sort of markers, signposts, are extremely useful to reorient the person who's listening in the same way you orient the person who's reading. And the listener is at a little bit more of a disadvantage because they can't flip back through your presentation. It's a video presentation. Technically, they could just scrub back through YouTube or whatever to an earlier part of it. But let's face it, they're probably not going to do that. So you need to be clearer in those standpoints. So and I think the advice for any of these things is the same as the written advice for structure and format, is just look at good ones. Look at people, no matter whether it's academic or directly on point. If you want to know what a good presenter does, look at TED Talks. Look at a whole lot of good TED Talks, and you'll see what people who are at the top of their game presentation-wise do. I mean, not that TED Talks are immune from criticism. A lot of people are very concerned that TED Talks are so one-sided and it's very difficult. You know, people can't really reference their work or aren't really open to examination or critique of what they have to say in TED Talks. Nevertheless, if you're just looking at the TED Talk as a presentation in a persuasive way of someone's argument, these are generally a really good thing to shoot for and a really good idea of how those things work. It's also an extremely good example of how to use slides and visual materials, because you'll find that almost no one uses slides in TED Talks. And certainly they don't do the death by PowerPoint that some lecturers do, where you've got screens just scrolling through fast enough to give you an epileptic seizure with facts and details and dates and whatever else. We know that style of presentation doesn't work. We know it's not persuasive, and we know people don't learn from it. PowerPoint is a terrible, terrible technology for learning. It's been empirically proven. And hey, this is a research subject. We care about empirical proof. So when you come to your own presentations, obviously there's not really going to be enough time in this one for you to be able to, you know, for your research presentation, to be putting slides or whatever together. I'm not going to stop you if you are. But when you do come to presentations where you're using slides, use a couple of good images. Use the slides to highlight key phrases or words, or maybe someone's name or something that is difficult, that the person, the audience may not be able to spell. So you know, you can use an image of the person with their name under it. So your audience will go, oh, okay, that's what you mean. That's how that person's name is spelt. That's you know what Martin Heidegger looks like, and that's how you spell Heidegger. Well, that's probably an easy one to spell. But definitely don't do the flip through slides, because we know that just doesn't work. Doesn't work in an educational context, and it certainly doesn't work in a persuasive context for lots and lots of reasons, which I'm not going to get into here. But what you want is the audience to be looking at you and you being persuasive to them. You don't want them to be distracted by these things. And so that TED Talks, I think, are a good thing to look for, but also look at other formats of people who do video presentations. There's a lot of YouTubers, a lot of whom are kind of trivial and talking about stupid stuff, but have a look at the way in which they present themselves. Have a look at, I've suggested you look at Thomas Frank's study tips videos all the way through the term. Thomas is a good example of someone who is a very accomplished presenter in the YouTube format. And yeah, he chucks in some stupid jokes and some, you know, kind of silly effects and things from time to time, but have a look at the way in which he carries himself, he presents himself, and the things he has to say. And look at films, look at plays, look at everything. It's the same with any form of communication, whether it's writing or spoken. Just get inspired by different sources and look at who are good communicators. You know, have a look at the way in which Barack Obama, for instance, communicates. Have a look at the way in which Donald Trump communicates, which is effective in a different way. Whatever you think about those two different politicians, they both use very, very particular strategies to present themselves in a spoken way, and that says things about themselves. And that's, I guess, another part of the puzzle for you as law students, is what you do when you make these presentations is construct a persona, and you construct a digital identity for yourself. And that's important as you go on as a professional. The way you talk in your presentations is certainly different to the way in which you'll talk with your friends or family. You don't want to be like those radio DJs who put on the radio voice whenever they're on the radio. You don't want to be doing that, but you realise that you actually learn to present yourself as a professional in a different way. And those videos can go into your work portfolio, your professional portfolio, and are certainly very, very persuasive when it comes to job interviews. You know, you can put in all sorts of other written stuff in a portfolio, but quite often what an interviewer wants to see is, well, what do you like as a presenter? And if they've got video material, they can look at that, they're chuffed, because they can actually see you on your feet, so to speak, talking about something, and they'll get a real sense of what you like as a communicator. And if they're making that decision about whether to interview you or not, that's going to be crucial, because if they're going to interview you, of course they're going to see what you like as a communicator in the interview. But the real cruncher is with that point at which someone's deciding, are they going to give you an interview or not? And sometimes what makes a difference is being able to see a video of someone speaking and going, you know what, they sound like someone who I'd be interested in employing. Let's put them on the interview pile. Alright, what else this week? The navigating section looks at some of the tools we can use for creating videos. I suspect that's probably what we're going to spend most of the time in the workshop talking about. It'll be a bit of a tech help workshop more than anything else, so bring your questions along. Make sure you have a go at doing this before that workshop, because there's not much point in sort of being able to sort of ask questions if no one's actually had a go and hit their roadblocks yet. So have a go at doing a video, even if you're just going to do a nonsense video that you're never going to show anyone else. You're just going to put a video together and do it to see if the process works, see if you can do a 20-second video, see if you can upload it to YouTube, see if you can delete it from YouTube, and then by the time we have the workshop next week, you'll have questions. You'll actually have those questions to say, well, when YouTube does this, what does that actually mean? Or how do I actually set my permissions so that someone can actually view my video, which is the problem that a lot of people have, because markers are not going to be emailing you back and saying, oh, by the way, you didn't set the permissions on your video, I can't view it, can you change those? They'll just give you a 0 for that week. So the workshop is focusing on that task and looking at those practical skills and the practical Q&A. So I'm probably not going to have an elaborate amount of things to talk about or show you that week, but we will have lots of help and advice for people who are saying, you know, how come my videos look so muddy and washed out all the time? What can I do to improve my lighting? Well, we've got a few tips that can help you with that. How come my sound is always awful? What can I do about that? All those sort of things are the sorts of questions we can talk about next week. Or you might be already all over this. You might be a great YouTuber who's out there who's creating content all the time. And if it's law content, let us know about it, because we'd certainly be interested in seeing it. All right, I think that's about all for this week, and I will see you in the workshop.